Namaste and good morning, everyone. We'll start with the prayers. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Bhavatu सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Now Mahamrityunjay mantra 3 times. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकम् इव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकम् इव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकम् इव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Welcome everyone. So today it's the second class for our Sanskrit Next Level 2 course. We are also having in parallel the scripture course, which is a part of Sanskrit level 2 as well. But for grammar class, this is the second class. So that's the schedule would be Mondays 9 a.m. Miami time. We'll have the grammar class of Sanskrit level 2 course, and Saturdays 11 a.m. Miami time we'll have the scripture class, Bhagavad Gita second chapter, as a part of it's still a part of our level 2 course. So last time in this class we did the unending nouns. So we did, for example, Atman, Karman, and there was a mistake. So this was the mistake which I want to correct, and it was corrected in the solutions. So I just wanted to point out that in the Karman there is only one form, Karmani, in the dual. It's not an alternative form. So if you have checked the notes of the last class, you would have seen that it is corrected there and explained the logic. If you have not seen the notes of the last class, then please do so. I'll just pull it up here for you. So first of all, we had two types of declensions for unending nouns. One is of the type Rajan and Naman, and here it is determined whether this last two letters is this preceded by a simple consonant or a conjunct consonant. So I defined a conjunct consonant. A conjunct consonant is where two or more consonants come together without an intervening vowel. Like in Atman, this tum, takara and makara, they are coming together without an intervening vowel. You have to be careful, those who are following in the IAST script, that these are not the English consonant. These are the Sanskrit consonants. So something like dha, which is written as DH in IAST, it's a simple consonant. It's one consonant. So please be very careful about that part, that when we talk of the vowel, we talk of the consonant, we are talking from the perspective of Sanskrit alphabet, even if we are using the IAST script. So when an is preceded by a simple consonant, then we have type 1, type of declension. In type 1, we have three forms. A strong form where the akara changes to akara, like raja, rajanam, rajanaha. Then weak form where the vowel remains unchanged, akara remains as akara, like rajabhyam. Here akara of akara which follows jakara remains unchanged. And then a weaker form, some books also say it as a weakest form. So this terminology, of course, is not standard. Is strong, weak, and weaker. The idea is that there are three types of forms here, and we are distinguishing based upon whether akara changes to akara remains unchanged, or it is dropped. So those are highlighted in blue, the weaker forms, and the weak forms are unhighlighted, and strong forms are highlighted in yellow. This locative singular, it allows alternative form, that which is both weak as well as weaker form, both. So there is a option. Now in the neuter, we have in the dual namni and namani. So there is an alternative form in the first and second case dual in the case of naman. So please go through this if you have not already, the class notes, and also we have corrected the solutions for the exercise in the last classes. Here there was a sandhi rule which we haven't discussed in detail. We'll do sometime during this course. But the sandhi rule is this: if a dental letter, if you remember the alphabet, this tavarga, takara, thakara, dakara, dhakara, nakara, this is 5 consonants. They come together as a part of tavarga, as a part of the alphabet, dental letters. And then sakara also is a dental letter. When these 6 dental letters, they come in the vicinity of palatal letters, chavarga and sha, chakara, chakara, jakara, jhakara, nyakara, shakara. And here this sandhi rule is a little bit different than what we read earlier. Earlier the sandhi rules we had, that was what follows. So A plus B, A is the preceding character, B is the following character, and then you will have something as a result of it. But here the rule says that it could be either immediately before or after, and then palatal letter changes into the dental letter. So that's what the rule says here. An example is Sat Chit. So here you see Takara is a dental letter, Chakara is a palatal letter, it comes in the vicinity of that, then dental letter changes to the corresponding palatal letter, Sachita. Similarly, in the Rajan forms, we saw when Akara is dropped, Jakara comes in vicinity of nakara, or we could say that nakara comes in the vicinity of jakara. Nakara here is the dental letter, jakara is the palatal letter, and as a result dental changes into palatal. So the corresponding palatal for nakara is yakara. I hope you are quite familiar with the alphabet and these things are not difficult for you to follow. Then there is a type 2, Atman and Karman. Here it is distinguished that the an is preceded by a conjunct consonant. That means two consonants coming together without an intervening vowel. There are a lot of examples of this kind: Atman, Brahman, Karman, Advan. And there is another condition which I did not discuss in the last class, but later on there were some questions, that an is preceded by a conjunct consonant, and as well the last letter of the conjunct consonant is makara or vakara. So if you look at here, an is preceded by a conjunct consonant, takara and makara is the last letter of the conjunct consonant. Conjunct consonant doesn't have to have just two, it could be any number of consonants coming together without an intervening vowel. That's the condition. It just doesn't have to be two, it could be more. But if the last consonant of the conjunct consonant is makara or vakara, then we have the type 2 forms. In type 2 forms, we don't have strong, weak, and weaker. We only have the strong and weak. There is no weaker form. So those are highlighted here, and these we discussed in the last class. Now, one thing which the question came in the last class was related to Murdhan. Now you see, Murdhan is a case where it is preceded by a conjunct consonant. If you look at the word Murdhan, it is preceded by a conjunct consonant, Refa and Dhakara, but the last letter of the conjunct consonant is not Makara or Vakara. So because of that, it will follow type 1 forms. Now most of the cases where an is preceded by a conjunct consonant, the last letter is indeed Makara or Vakara. That's generally the case. But in some cases, like Murdhan, an is preceded by a conjunct consonant, but the last letter is not Makara or Vakara. In this case, Murdhan is declined like Rajan, type 1 conjugation. So with that, I hope whatever the questions were there for the last class, they should be clarified, and it's very well documented in the class notes which are posted in the drive. So please go through these class notes if you have, and it should be clear to you. There was a question also related to these strong, weak, and weaker forms we are talking of. Is there any significance other than that that's how these are conjugated? That's how these are declined. So there is no special significance of that. It is just that that's how they are declined, and Panini doesn't identify them as a strong, weak, or weaker forms. This is by the people who try to create a little bit structure for beginners to be able to follow that these are the case. Panini just gives certain rules, and those rules result into these kind of forms. Now he of course identifies certain patterns, and those patterns, whenever they are occurring in any other nominal base, also would follow similar pattern. So that's the beauty of going by Panini rules directly, that we understand that in no matter how many circumstances that kind of combination comes, if a rule is defined, it will apply there. We have not studied, of course, Panini rules directly. We are not in a position right now to do so. Sometime maybe in the future we could have Panini rules, but the idea is that it results into this kind of a structure. With this, today we'll start a new topic which is not covered in our Sanskrit 1 course, which is only we'll do it in this course, and that is the topic of samasa, compounds. So samasa has two meanings. This word samasa, one meaning is to state something in a shorter manner. So to say something, to express something in a concise manner, that is samasa, in a summarized manner, so to speak. The opposite of that is vyasa. So there are two kinds of explanation of the scriptures. It's common. We say samasa paddhati or vyasa paddhati. Samasa paddhati means to say it in summarized manner, and vyasa paddhati is called to say it in a explanatory manner. So samasa, that is one meaning of samasa. Another meaning of samasa is it's coming from the root as and some asa. It means to mix things together very well. So these are the two meanings of samasa. Now the compound words do not happen just in Sanskrit. In English also we have compound words, but in Sanskrit compound words have life of its own. It is defined very precisely, a lot of categories and subcategories, and they can be formed on the fly by the writers. So in order to understand Sanskrit text, any text, two things become sort of prerequisites, and those two things can stump a lot of people. They find it very unsurmountable as a hurdle. Those two things are sandhi and samasa. Sandhi we have already studied. So if you can imagine that if somebody doesn't understand the sandhi and just has a very long word presented in the text, it would be very difficult for him to go even a step forward. Similar kind of thing is with samasa. So sandhi is the first step to parse a verse, and samasa is the next step. So we'll see what those are. Now, as I said, compound is not something which is unique to Sanskrit. In English, we do have compound. So something like bookshelf, man-made. Now the hyphen many a times is not even given because it has been accepted as a part of the vocabulary. So we don't always have the hyphens. But the idea is that this is a compound word made of two different words, and here it means shelf for the books. Here it is made by the man. Man-made does not mean made for the man, though there could be a compound possibly indicating made for the man. But the way the language has evolved, the way the word has been accepted, man-made has a very distinct meaning, means made by men, made by human beings. Bookshelf similarly doesn't have shelf made of books or made by books. It has shelf for the books, for keeping the books. So in English, these kind of compound words are very few. But in Sanskrit, this variety and the quantity is just mind-boggling. You could have compounds in all sort of possible ways. So we'll discuss what the four major categories of compounds. Dvandva samasa. Then second is called tatpurusha samasa. Then there is a subcategory of Tatpurusha. Karma Dharaya. We'll discuss all these in quite detail so that you understand. Then third is Bahubrihi. Fourth is Avyayi Bhava Samasa. Now Dvandva Samasa. This Samasa is applicable when two words. So remember, Samasa is always when two words come together. That's when the Samasa takes place. A compound word takes place when two component words come together. Now in case of Dvandva Samasa, the two words which have equal importance, they come together, it becomes a Dvandva Samasa. So in English, if we go by the English example, then something like pots and pens, we say like that, right? Pots and pens. And many times it is written as a single word. It simply means pots and pens. That's what it means. So when you write it as a single word, it technically becomes a compound word. Both have equal importance. Both words are equally important and they exist independently. When such kind of two words come together, it becomes a Dvandva Samasa. Tatpurusha Samasa happens when second word is more important than the first word. First word is qualifying, so to speak, generally giving you some information about the second word. But the second word is the main word. First word is the doesn't have that independent existence, so to speak. It is helping the understanding of the second word. So we, in our examples, bookshelf. Here is the shelf, which is what we are referring to. You could potentially have other material, but it is the shelf which I am referring to, and the purpose is for the books. So the shelf becomes the main element and book becomes the secondary element. It is just indicating the purpose of the shelf, but the actual item which I am referring to is a shelf. So that becomes an example of a Tatpurusha Samasa, where you will qualify the shelf with the purpose of keeping the books. Bahubrihi Samasa. So let me just talk about Avyay Bhava Samasa first. In Avyay Bhava Samasa, the first element is the indeclinable, and that becomes the primary. That becomes the important element. So here, when the first word is more important, you have Avyay Bhava Samasa, and normally that word is indeclinable, so the whole samasa results into an indeclinable word. It gives rise to an indeclinable word called avyaya. So here the first word is more important. So in Dvandva Samasa, both words are equally important. In Tatpurusha Samasa, if you see this construct, Purusha and Tat could be referring to either that man, Purusha means man, so that man or his man, if we will see how the his man part comes. But here the man is important, the Purusha is important, so the second part is more important. Avyay Bhava, because the whole thing becomes an avyaya, you can see avyaya, that is more important, the first part is more important. In Bahubrihi, it is the third part, the other than the two component words which are coming together, there is a meaning which is implied, taken from those two words, and that meaning is more important. So an example in English, if I have to say Bahubrihi Samasa, that would be, say, black belt. When I refer to somebody that he is a black belt. I'm not referring to a belt of a black color. I'm referring to a person who has earned this black belt as a result of some expertise, as a result of passing some competition. That person has earned black belt. And when I say he is a black belt, I'm referring to a person. I'm not referring to either black or belt. I'm referring to a person who has earned this black belt. Similarly, when I say redhead, I'm not referring to the red primarily or the head primarily. I'm referring to a person who has reddish hair. So these are the examples where an element which is other than the words indicated in the compound, that becomes more important. That becomes the primary purpose of the using the word. So today we'll discuss in detail is Dvandva Samasa. So Dvandva. Now if you can see, I can take this word as Dvam plus Dvam. Dvandvam. Dvandvam. Dvam plus Dvam. Dvam means two. So two. That means both are important. So consider it this way. Because this word is repeating twice, both words are equally important in Dvandva Samasa. Dvam, Dvam, two, two. That's how the Dvandva Samasa is. Examples of Dvandva Samasa. So what are the examples? So I could say, for example, Rama and Shyama. So these are the two persons. And if I say they are going to school, Rama and Shyama are going to school. So I can have the sentence in Sanskrit made in two different manners. So I can say Rama cha Shyama cha Vidyalayam Gachatah. If you remember, Gachatah, Gachati, Gachatah, Gachanti, that is the form of dual number because there are two persons here. So this will be Rama actually. Rama cha Shyama cha. So Rama cha Shyama cha Vidyalayam Gachatah. Rama and Shyama are going to the school. If I have to express the same thing as Samasa, so in Samasa what happens? I express this thing as, instead of Rama cha Shyama cha, I will just express here as Rama Shyamau Vidyalayam Gachatah. So Rama Shyamau Vidyalayam Gachatah. Rama Shyamau Vidyalayam Gacchata. That becomes a samasa construction. So instead of saying Ramaha cha Shyama cha, I have made it concise. I have summarized, so to speak. So samasa makes the expression shorter. So both are correct. Whether you say Ramaha cha Shyama cha Vidyalayam Gacchata, or I can say Rama Shyamau Vidyalayam Gacchata. Here you can see Rama and Shyama are two components. Both are equally important, not necessarily in the terms of persons. Here the importance is not considered from the social perspective, but from the grammatical perspective. Means two words indicate the nouns and both are important in that sense. So please do not take the importance from a social perspective that Rama may be Shyama's boss and therefore he is more important. So this way, if you look at how the compound is formed, this Dvandva Samasa. So we have Rama and Shyama. So when I make a compound here, Ramaha cha Shyama cha. So let's say I make this compound here. So one thing I do is the Dvandva is expressed in the sense of cha or and. So I remove the word cha. This cha now can be used either only once at the end or after every word, as you probably remember from the first class. We are using after both the words simply for the clarification. It just seems a little bit clear. But you could potentially say Ramaha Shyamaha cha Vidyalayam Gacchata, and both are okay. So in order now for me to make this samasa, here I'll say this is equal to, so I remove the word cha. I remove the word cha and I remove the word cha from here, as well as I remove the declension part. So if you remember the Shyama is the Pratipadika. So I just take the Pratipadika, Rama, Shyama, and I remove the declension part. So now I only deal with the Pratipadika, and then I combine the two. So Rama, Shyama becomes now my compound word. Rama, Shyama. It becomes a compound word. So Rama, Shyama. Now Rama, Shyama becomes a compound word. It becomes a Pratipadika. It becomes a nominal base word. It is ending in akara. So just like the forms of Rama Shyama will also come. The difference is that Rama Shyama, because it represents two people, the only declensions will be in the dual number. There will be no singular all plural declension of this word called Rama Shyama. So that's why the first case you will have Rama Shyamau. Rama Shyamau. This will be the first case. Similarly, second case, because it's always dual number, it will again be Rama Shyamau. Then Rama Shyama Bhyam, like that. So all the 8 cases, so to speak, including vocative, they would be applicable for this samasa, but because it is dual number, it will only go into the dual numbers declension. So with this, I actually use this declension here. It is a subject. It is the nominative case. Rama Shyamau Vidyalayam Gacchata. So that's how you make Dvandva Samasa. It's pretty simple. Process is pretty simple. And you will find a fair number of cases of Dvandva Samasa in the literature. Now, Samasa can also be combined with other samas. So remember, this has become one word now, Rama Shyama. So Samasa is always a combination of two words. So I can take this word and take another word and make a potentially another Dvandva Samasa or another of this kind of Samasa, Tatpurusha, Bahuvrihi or Avyayabhava. So there is no stopping, there is no rule that how many component words can come in a Samasa finally. The rule is that two words together come at one time, but then it forms one word, and again that word can combine with another word to make another word of those. So the total component words could be any number of words. Sometimes Samasa could be very, very long, going more than even one line. And that's what increases the complexity of Samasa. At the same time, it gives you a tremendous powerful expression that instead of expressing a statement by so many different cha or different vibhakti or different ways to put the things together, you can really express in a very compact and precise manner. So that's the power of Samasa. Now, if I add Ramaha cha, Shyama cha, and say if I say Sita cha. So Rama and Shyama and Sita. So here my word will become the same logic. Here I'll say Sita. Rama, Shyama, Sita. This becomes my Pratipadika, nominal base word. But here you can see the three people are involved. And because of three people are involved, we have to use the plural number. So it becomes a nominal base word, but it has a plural number. And therefore, it will decline like Sita. So because it is ending in A and it's a feminine, Sita is feminine. So the whole word becomes like a feminine Akaranta feminine word. If you remember, we had these Akaran feminine words. Like Gita, if you remember this Gita, like Sita. So this is the Akaranta feminine word. So it will decline like this, but only in plural. So this thing will decline like Akaranta feminine, but only in plural. But all the cases are applicable. So you could say Rama Shyama Sita Bhi, like Gita Bhi, Rama Shyama Sita Bhi, or Rama Shyama Sita Bhya. So like that you can say depending upon which case is applicable. But the idea is that this has become one word and now it can be declined very simply. So as we saw in the declinations, it doesn't matter how big is the word. It matters is how is it ending and what is the gender. So here the gender will be taken of the last word of the compound. So Sita, even though Rama and Shyama are masculine, but Sita is feminine. So Sita is determined the gender of the whole samasa compound, whole samasa. So this is in short Dvandva Samasa. Any questions so far? There is a question, does that mean Sanskrit can theoretically have infinite number of words? Yes, that is true, and that's why the dictionary is not technically possible for all possible words. There is a question, if it is Rama Guru, will it be Rama Guru? Yes, If it's Rama and Guru, it's a Ukaranta masculine. So Rama Guru. So you have to decline it like an Ukaranta. So if you remember, we have Ukaranta declensions. So depending upon what is the ending and what is the gender of the last word, that's how it will be declined. The question is, good morning, in this case of three equally important words is still called Dvandva Samasa. Yes. Remember, even though there are three important words, we are combining them two at a time. So first we combine Rama Shama, then it becomes one word, and then I combine Rama, Shama, and Sita. So that's how it became three words. You could combine first Shama and Sita and then Rama. That's fine. Either way you combine, but in Samasa, technically two words come together at one time, even though the whole Samasa could be very, very long. And in this case, yes, it will be a Dvandva Samasa because all the component words have equal importance. Okay, I'm trying to go through your questions. I see a lot of questions. So, okay. There is a question related to the earlier topic I was discussing, unending nouns, Vartman. Somebody is saying why there is a dot under N for Vartman. That we have discussed Ranatvam rule, that Nakara becomes Ranakara. So from the class 1 we had studied a lot of time that in under what cases Nakara becomes Ranakara, the dot under. So you please go through those classes of Sanskrit 1 course, that would clarify there. There is a question, any explanation on Karam Dhara? We'll do that as we come to that Samasa. Today I want to focus on Dvandva Samasa. Yes, the question is Ramascha. It should be Ramahacha. It should be Ramascha. That is correct as per the Sandhi. I just wanted to show you without Sandhi so that it's clearer. But in a sentence it becomes normally Ramascha, Shamascha. So the question is, should it not be Vidyalayam? Yes, that is the typo on my part. So it should be Vidyalayam. Thank you for correcting. There is a question, could you list the English examples in the upper left of the whiteboard according to Samasa list to help us remember? So for now, I gave only one example of pots and pans for Dvandva. And this is like Tatpurusha. And black belt is Bahubrihi. We'll discuss these examples in more detail, Tatpurusha and Bahubrihi. Today, I just wanted to give you sort of an overview and then wanted to explain Dvandva in more detail. But you will have more chances to learn Tatpurusha, its various combinations, permutations, and Bahubrihi. So we'll spend more time on those samasas later on. There is a question, instead of Sita, if we put Gita, is that going to be feminine? Yes, Gita is a feminine. There is a question, if we combine Rama, Sita, and Shama, then it will be Akaranta masculine word. That's correct. If we say Rama plus Sita plus Shama, then it will become a masculine word. Is Dvandva an example of samasa? That's the question. Yes, Dvandva is a type of samasa. Dvanda itself, the word itself, is a compound word. Yes, that is true. That dvam plus dvam, dvam, it becomes an example of samasa. But here, uh, so if you look at here, this word, the word itself, dvandam, I said it's dvam plus dvam. This form dvam is generally not used. It's kind of an archaic form. But yes, in the technically that is true that Dvandva Samas, the word itself is an example of Dvandva Samas. There is a question, Pranam Swamiji, for the last Samasa example, would not Sita be Sita? Ha, yes, that is true. This is the Pratipadika, Rama, Shyama, Sita. And when I use it in the word, then if it is a nominative word, I'll use it as Rama, Shyama. So that would become Rama, Shyama, Sitaha Vidyalayam Gachanti. Rama, Shyama, Sitaha Vidyalayam Gachanti. That's how it will become. There's a question, do you have an English example of Avyay Bhava Samasa? We'll come to that. When we discuss Avyay Bhava Samasa in more detail, I'll find out and we'll discuss more in detail at that time. So Rama, Shyama, Sita, because it includes three members, it will always be in the plural. And now three members do not mean necessarily the three words. It could be like I could say pots and pans, for example, in English. That will always be plural because pots refers to multiple pots, pens refers to multiple pens, even though the words are two. So the dual and plural is determined by how many, not how many words, but how many objects are being represented by it. That's the criteria. So this is in short Dvandva Samasa. If you, I'll just take one more type of Dvandva Samasa. So there are two types of Dvandva Samasa. One is called Iterator Dvandva, another is called Samahara Dvandva. So whatever we studied so far, they are all Iterator Dvandva. Iterator means separate sort of, you can understand. Iter actually means other than, but here it means separating each word. So Rama cha, Shyama cha, Sita cha, and then in the compound, they, even though we create one word, they remain in the separate meaning. That is called Iterator Dvandva. So that's what we had studied so far. There is another category of Dvandva Samasa called Samahara Dvandva. Samahara Dvandva comes when the grouping part is more important, not the individual components. So even though all individual components have equal importance, but it's the sense of combination that is what is indicated. So an example is given, Pani Padam, hands and feet. So it is the together, all the limbs together, that give a sense of an object, rather than one hand separate, second hand separate, one leg separate, second leg separate. That's not how the meaning is conveyed. Here the meaning is conveyed is that as if it's a combined entity together. And that combined entity is what we are emphasizing, not the individual elements. So here Pani means hand, Pada means foot. Pani Padam means hands and feet. I still will split this compound. So in Sandhi we say split, and compound we say Vigraha. So Sandhi we say Vicheda, Samasa, Vigraha. So when I paraphrase a compound word, a samasa word, into a like Ramaha Shyama, Rama Shyamau. I say Ramaha Chaha, Shyamaha Cha. That is called Vigraha. It becomes like a sentence or part sentence. So that way it's called Vigraha. Vigraha means to paraphrase samasa in the form of the component words. Like what does it mean? To explain it. That what does samasa mean? So that a process called Vigraha. Just like in Sandhi, it is called Vicheda, that is splitting the words. In Samasa, the same process, similar process, is called Vigraha. So here the Vigraha Vakya, we say Vigraha Vakya. Vakya means sentence. So Vigraha Vakya would remain the similar way. Pani cha, padau cha. Pani is the ikaranta word. If you remember or you don't remember, I do not know, but Pani, Kirti, Harihi, Hari, it's a neuter, Panim. But dual is still this Hari, so like this. So Padaha, Padau. So Pani cha, Padau cha. So Pani is dual, two hands and 2 feet. But the word itself, you see, it becomes Pani Padam. It doesn't become Pani Padaha. That is the difference in Samahara Dvandva. Samahara Dvandva, the resulting word will always be in neuter singular because it's the sense of group which is important. So it, irrespective of what is the gender, what is the ending of component words, the resulting word will always be neuter singular. So that is the main difference between the Samahara Dvandva and Itiretar Dvandva. The meaning remains the same. Here the emphasis is on the collection itself, and there the equal components are emphasized. The individual components are equally emphasized. Here the emphasis is on the collection itself. So it always results into a neuter singular. That is the main difference between Samahara and Itaretara Dvandva. Similarly, there is a word called Gata Gatam, this verse in Bhagavad Gita 9:21. It says, Gata Gatam Kama Kama Labhante. Gata Gatam, it's a neuter singular, but it actually is a Samahara Dvandva. It says Gatam Cha Agatam Cha. Gatam means which is gone, Agatam means which is come. So the verse basically says that those people who try to fulfill their desires, they only attain the things which are of the nature of going and coming. No permanence. They attain the things which are of the nature of going and coming. So that is Gata Gatam. So here it's the going and coming separately. The emphasis is not there. Emphasis is in the transience or temporary nature, that these are the things of the nature of going and coming. Now in Sanskrit, there is a lot of rules Panini has made that under what conditions can you form a Samahara Dvandva and under what conditions can you make Itaretara Dvandva. We are not going into those conditions. Those are quite advanced. What I want you to understand that just when you look at the word, because we are trying to more like understand the scriptures, that's our object. So be aware that it is a neuter singular in Samahara Dvandva. That is important. Iterator Dvandva, the resultant word would be either dual or plural. There is no possibility of a singular word in Iterator Dvandva. It will be either dual or plural. So that is the main difference. So there are some questions still. Let me see. So there is a Gita chapter 2 verse 11. would be an example of samahara, first word in Gita 2:11. Okay, let's see Gita 2:11. Ashochan anvashocastvam. This is not a dvandva samasa, the first word. These are actually different words when you split the sandhi. So we will not go there right now, but this is not a dvandva samasa. The first word of 2:11 is not a dvandva samasa here. Okay, he's saying first word, second line. Gata soon, agata sunsha. So this is also not dvandva samasa. These are two different words. Gata soon, agata soon. We will discuss them later. Maybe it will come in our scripture class actually, because we are doing the second chapter. So that's where it will come in much more detail in our scripture class, that how these words, what is the how these words are to be interpreted. So remember, dvandva samasa, when we make a pratipadika, it can, as I said, it can be used in any case, but the number has to be either dual or plural depending upon the samasa type. But the case could be any. So I could, here I'm saying Rama and Shyama are going to school. I could also say I give this book to Rama and Shyama, both of them. So in that case, giving is represented by fourth case. So I'll just like in the fourth case, it is Rama Bhyam, Akaranta. I would say there Rama Shyama Bhyam. Aham Rama Shyama Bhyam Pustakam Dadami. I give this book to Rama and Shyama. So it becomes Rama Shyama Bhyam. Similarly, if I have to give something, if I have to take something from Rama, Shyama, and Sita, and you see it will become plural, fifth case, then I'll say Aham Rama Shyama Sita Bhya, like this. So compound words can occur in any of the cases, in any of the vibhaktis. So with this, I would give you an exercise. This exercise may be a little difficult, but just make an attempt and see if you can attempt something here. The reason, and this exercise is already posted in the repository. So if you want to take from there, you can take from there. Exercise 204. The idea here is this, that you translate the following sentences, both using Dvandva Samasa and without using Dvandva Samasa. And we'll discuss more of it in the after this class exercise break. But that's the idea here, that you try to form these sentences, try to translate these sentences with Dvandva Samasa and without Dvandva Samasa. So I'll put this thing for you. So this is the exercise. So we'll have a 12-minute break. You try as much as you can, and then see, I have given the book, all the vocabulary which you would need is given on this side. You may have to refer to your tables, which I hope you have a printout of those with you, of the verb and the nominal tables, and then you should be able to make these sentences. We'll discuss these ones anyway after the classroom class exercise break. Okay, so I'll stop it for 10 to 12 minutes, and then we'll see after 12 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. So I do not know how difficult it became, or was it okay. We'll try these things, and then you will see how does this work. So first sentence, Rama and Lakshmana go to the forest. So that should be relatively simple. That I'll just use a Sanskrit tool here. So this is a tool which I'm using for the transliteration. It gives the both forms at the same time. So Rama cha Lakshmana cha vanam gachatah. So Ramaha cha Lakshmanaha cha vanam gachatah. That is the first sentence. If you look at, and if I have to do samasa, the same thing, then I basically say Rama Rama Lakshmana vanam gachatah. So that part should be pretty clear. Rama and Lakshmana go to the forest. Forest is vanam. It's a neuter noun, akaranta. I just gave the form here to indicate normal. That way we don't have to mention neuter here, because vanam can be only neuter. I just gave the, so this is one way to indicate many times when so you can mention a noun, a word, either by the pratipadika or by the nominative singular. So nominative singular vanam means automatically you would know it's a akaranta neuter noun. Then Sita is speaking to Rama and Lakshmana. So here Sita Rama Lakshmana Badati. Sita. So here Rama Lakshmana, it is the second accusative case. It's the second case. But the form is the same, if you remember. Rama Lakshmana. Sita Rama Lakshmana Vadati. This is with the samasa. If it is without the samasa, like I said, both using and without using. So without using would be Sita Ramam cha Lakshmanam cha Vadati. I can have it here with the So both of these sentences, Sita Ramam cha Lakshmanam cha vadati or Sita Ram Lakshmano vadati, they are equivalent. One is using Dvandva Samasa, another is using without Dvandva Samasa. But they are equivalent, mean the same thing. So you see, it makes it shorter, and particularly when we are talking of multiple people, it becomes even better to express. So using samasa in Sanskrit is very, very common, just like sandhi. Samasa is a very common thing. And we'll post the solution to this exercise in our repository, but I hope you understand the logic behind it. Similarly, like I will just do one more sentence here. Dasharatha gives a chariot for Rama, Lakshmana and Sita. So if I have to use this sentence without samasa, here the gives is the root called da. The root called da to give, and it has the form dadati. It is a little different form. We haven't studied all that yet, but the logic is the same. Badati, dadati. Here instead of the, it becomes dadati. The third person singular form, dadati, in the present tense. So if this sentence you have to see that Dasharatha gives. So how will you say? You will say Dasharatha. If so, think of it this way: if you just have to say Dasharatha gives a chariot for Rama, then how will you make this sentence? You will say Dasharatha Ramaya Ratham Dadati. So Ratha becomes the Ratham because it's a Akaranta masculine. So Dasharatha Ramaya Ratham Dadati. If you have to say to Ram for Rama and Lakshmana, you would say Dashratha Ramaya cha Lakshmanaya cha Ratham Dadati, like this. So I'll write this here for you. So Dashratha Ramaya cha so that becomes the sentence here without samasa. See, Dashratha Ramaya cha Lakshmanaya cha Sitayai. If you remember, the dative, it will become dative case Gitayai, dative case singular. Similarly becomes Sitayai Ratham Dadati. But if I have to use samasa for this, samasa would become Rama Lakshmana Sita, and in that case I can use the plural form of plural feminine form. Sita, Gita, Gitabhya. So I'll say Rama Lakshmana Sitabhya. So it becomes like this: Dasharatha Rama Lakshmana Sitabhyaha Ratham Dadati. Now this word looks very long, but if you understand that it's a compound formation and how it is to be parsed, it's very easy to understand. So many times in our books, in Gita and other places also, you might find hyphens indicating that it's a compound word. So for the ease of understanding and chanting. Traditionally, Sanskrit does not use hyphens, and sometimes it becomes impractical also to put hyphens. But the idea is that it has become one word. It's a one word. So you cannot split this word. You cannot give a space. You cannot put Rama some other place than Lakshmana because it's one word. So remember, this is the major difference between Sandhi and Samasa. In Sandhi, when I say Ramahacha, I can make it as a one word called Ramascha. So here I can say Ramascha and it becomes a one word, but I can always say Ramahacha and it will not change the meaning. So I can write it either way. I can split and I can put the words in different places. I can put Lakshmana first, Rama later, Vanam here. Like Sanskrit, as you remember, it's a free word order language. So I could put Vanam first, Ramacha. But when it is talking of the compound, the whole compound is one word. So you cannot technically give a space between the component words. So this is a very important thing. And one person was asking what is the difference between Sandhi and Samasa. So that is one very important difference. In Samasa, it becomes one word and that word cannot be split. In Sandhi, even though it appears like a one word, but it is still two different words and you can always express them as two different words. It will not change the meaning. So I hope with this exercise you understand that you try to submit this exercise doing your own and then we'll also post the solutions. Just one thing about Dandva Samasa. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord actually has mentioned this Samasa by name. In Bhagavad Gita 10:33, it says, Aksharanam akarosmi dvandvaha samasikasya cha. I am the dvandva among samasas. So we saw four types of samasas and he says, I am the dvandva among samasas. Means dvandva is considered so important. This 10th chapter, Lord is saying, I am this among this. I am the akara, the first letter among all the letters. I am the dvandva samasa among all the samasas, all the compounds. So I mean, all samasas are important, of course, but I just wanted to bring your attention to this verse from Bhagavad Gita where Lord himself is saying that I am the dvandva samasa among the compounds. It is one of the, just like the akara is the first letter people learn, dvandva is the first compound people learn. It is considered a very basic compound, very simple and basic compound. So if we have, if you remember, I had sent out this email with a recommendation of a book which we will use in the our level 2 course, the recommended textbook, and this is the textbook, Sanskrit Subodhini. The first, because this has mostly Devanagari, not the IAST, we decided we will not use this for the first 4 classes. Because first 4 classes we want to make sure that IAST script is also covered there. So we will not use that this book for the first 4 classes. But after that we'll start using. The idea is not being able to finish the whole book. Of course, it is not possible to do in this course. But this is a nice book I found, and you can buy it. I have given you the link also. Sanskrita Subodhini. So you still have time. You can still procure this book because for another 2 classes we will not be using this book, and after that we can start using this book. I have not seen many exercise submissions from many of you for the past class. Please do submit the exercises, do send your questions. It is important that exercises are being done and the questions are being asked, because as we get into more and more advanced topics, if you have not covered the previous ones, it will become difficult for you to follow along, and you might find it is going too fast. But that would be only because if you have not covered the previous classes. So please do so. It is very important. Remember, it's a subject which builds upon. It's not something that you can just listen and forget. It's a learning. It's so please do the exercises, do the, if Sanskrit 1 course, if you have any points which are not clear, you go back to those classes. If you have questions, please send us the questions, but please go through the notes, go through the classes, and we are posting the notes for these classes also. So please go through all that and submit the exercises to us. Also, because now we are having only 2 classes a week, for the scripture class I declared last time in the scripture course, particularly for Sanskrit students, level 2 students, you please do this, take this. So this exercise, you take that 3 verses you will do from the second chapter before I cover, so that way you will know that if you are having any problems related to those verses. I'll just see some of the questions. Why Ratha becomes Ratham accusative case? Like Ramaha Ramam, it's a Akaranta masculine noun. There is a question. Please, there's a question. Please give the name and author of the book you recommend. It's already included in the email. The first email which you received, it has there Sanskrit Subodhini by Madhav Deshpande. It also, I gave the link there. There is a question just for the comment just for feedback. Exercise was fine. Could do nearly the 5 sentences. Writing in Devanagari. I like the type of exercise. Thank you. So the question he's asking regarding the Ratham, that gives a chariot, not gives 2 chariot. So remember, this is the thing, that when you translate literally from English to Sanskrit or Sanskrit to English, we will get into these kind of problems. So accusative means it's an object of the verb da, to give. What are you giving? You are giving the chariot. So that's how it gets into accusative case. And this you have to learn. You cannot literally translate that two, it has to come two. The Sanskrit and English are not equivalent languages. So you have to learn Sanskrit the Sanskrit way. And here the reasoning behind is that he gives, and gives what? He gives a chariot. So the chariot becomes an accusative case. There is a comment, it is hard to get outside of US and India. Neeraj, I don't understand, what does this mean? Can we change the order of the words before combining in samasa? Instead of Rama and Sita, can we do it as Sita and Rama? So it is possible to change the order of the words. The thing is this, there is a rule, there are rules that how the word should be ordered. We will not study those rules. Those become quite advanced in a way. And our main purpose, as I said, is to study the scripture. So as you study, you will see what order they are put in, and you will just try to understand the meaning. So that way we don't have to really bother so much about the rules in what order they should be put. But just to let you know that Panini has defined very precise set of rules. There is a little bit flexibility, but otherwise it's very precise that how the words should be ordered. Can we use Tritiya Vibhakti for the second question? Sita is speaking to Rama and Lakshmana. So generally no. you do not use, because that becomes the instrumental. Rama and Lakshmana, that means using Rama and Lakshmana, Sita speaks, as if making them as prop for her to speak. That becomes the case if you use the third case here. What is the name of the tool you are using? I'm using iTranslator. So if you want, it's fine, but otherwise our iTranslator is the tool for transliteration. It requires download, but if you want it, the only advantage, it is both the scripts at the same time, Devanagari and IST. Otherwise, the previous tool I showed you, Sanskrit, that works just fine. Okay, so with this we'll close it, and with the prayers. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते, पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Thank you everyone.